Transcendence, session number 9. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing today?
Great.
Excellent. Glad you're all here. Transcendence, what comes to mind for you when you hear the word? What was it? Rising? Rising above. Okay. So rising above. Others? I'm sorry?
Rising above what?
What?
Rising above.
Yes. Yeah, right. Agreed. Other definitions for transcendence?
I thought about when you said rising above or getting outside of yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
The conditioned self.
So to denote the conditioned self, I will use these here quotes. Yeah.
Reaching a new level of understanding.
Love it. New level of understanding. And even new level by itself would work, but understanding is certainly apropos. Final one? Anybody? What kind of things might we be transcending?
Being defensive.
So ways of self. So defensive, but behaviors, which is a behavior or response. Others?
How about closer to God?
Yeah, so closer to God, but and the other one I wanted to add, make sure we didn't miss it, was transcending beliefs and habits of thinking. Because that's where we started 8 sessions ago, and no point not continuing on this thinking pattern. All these things bring us to the highest state a human can achieve, and that maybe is the most interesting about transcendence. Self-actualization is not your highest self. Self-transcendence is the highest thing a human can achieve in this lifetime, to transcend themselves. For a person who has transcended themselves, what do we call that person? Enlightened, right, exactly. And we refer to that person under another name. There's a kind of a cryptic name that's used for people who are enlightened. They're called mystics. Very good. So the word mystic isn't some sort of magician working in the background. This is actually very literal translation, which is as you transcend, you reach a mystic. And the reason I want to bring this term up, not so much that anyone in here, including myself, will ever achieve enlightenment. It will be a lifetime journey. But when you start to talk about what that looks like, it's always helpful to have a goal where you're going. And as I started to try to talk about transcendence and the mystic in this session, I ended up realizing that I need to allow the poets to do it for me. So I've never had a slide like this. We'll just do it. It's 7 quotes. And the quotes bring home the points that I would make much less eloquently. So as you think about transcendence, this overcoming the world and the self, it's helpful to think about it this way. Frederick Lenz tells us that a mystic is a person who sees the facts as inadequate. They don't take the world on its face value. Kudos. There's a lot there not to take on face value. Remember, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear? I think the song goes. Yeah. Another quote that I liked was Joseph Campbell's, "The psychotic drowns in the same water that the mystic swims in with delight." The things we call challenges are just perspectives. The mystic steps outside of the mental labels of challenges and sees the world as opportunity. Rumi talks about mystics as those who, when they experience guests like joy or depression, or malice, and when they arrive, the mystic welcomes and entertains them all. There's no good or bad, it's just life. Finally, Abdu Sayed says, the perfect mystic is not an ecstatic devotee lost in contemplation of oneness, but a true saint goes in and out amongst the people and never forgets God for a single moment. These are beautiful ways to think about what we've been talking about. Now, as you get into transcendence itself, or spirituality, the spirituality of it, Meister Eckhart brings us home with the following thought. Spirituality is not to be learned by flight from the world. Rather, we must learn inner solitude wherever and with whomever we may be. We must learn to penetrate things and find God there. So you've got God with you in the prior quote everywhere you go, and you've got God in every situation. Thematically, you see where we're going. Wayne Teasdale says, existence is a summons to the eternal journey of the sage we all are, if you can only see it. And we're going to close with that thought, but I'm going to open with it too and say, you're already there. You just don't know it. Stop getting in your own way. And the final quote comes from Evelyn Underhill, mysticism is the art of union with reality. And to round out this seriousness, I think it's always helpful to have some comments from Dwight from The Office.
The reason why spirituality is important is because it is reality. And we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Who I am and what I am is not my body. It's not even my personality. It's not the trauma I suffered. It's not what I've been through. That there is a little spark of the divine inside of me. There's hard data that shows around mental health and well-being that having serenity, meaning, purpose, a losing of oneself to a transcendent self of the divine increases greatly the quality of our lives. We're a part of something much greater and much more beautiful than ourselves, and in living in that state can greatly enrich your life.
We're a part of something much bigger and much larger than ourselves. Anything come up for anyone? The thematic use of a spark of the divine or a whisper of God, you'll see it throughout the literature. As you bump into the quiet and as you step outside yourself, you'll spend more time in the space that God inhabits. You'll be more aware of it. So this mystical self is in the world, but not of it. Those who are awake among us are Carl Reiner, and actually I want to talk about this. Carl Reiner says the Christian of the future will be a mystic or he will not exist at all. Love this quote. What do you think Carl's talking about here? The Christian of the future will be a mystic or he or she will not exist at all. Why might that be? I said the Christian of the future will be a mystic or he will not be a Christian at all.
Can you define mystic again?
That's interesting. A person who's transcendent or transcended. So awake, aware, someone who's stepped outside the world, not in the world but not of it. A person who holds their own ego self at check at minimum or has completely transcended their sense of separate self and sees themselves only as connected. I think what Carl's trying to say here is that you can't be fully Christian and walk around with an ego that's getting between you and God. You're always going to have an ego. But to be a good Christian, you're going to have to own the relationship over that ego. You're going to have to hold it in check. You're going to have to be the master, not the victim. And that's true with all your thinking in general. But this mystic, should we continue to pursue this path, these are the kind of things that would come in our way. First off, the mystic would live in accordance with their destiny. You may know some people like this or bumped into them. They seem to be free of society's requirements, mores, and norms. They seem kind of unusual, maybe even a little unconventional. Some might say crazy. They live in a state of regular ecstasy. This is the peace that surpasses all understanding. This is joy. This is love. For there's nothing getting in the way of it. And as such, they're no longer at the mercy of the world. And this being, this person as you evolve to become more and more towards an enlightened being, you're going to find that your detachment from yourself and from things and from the world prospers everyone around you. And that your desirelessness blesses them. This is the path of eternal wisdom. So, how do you know you're on the right path? Question I often get. Well, do you find yourself living more in the moment? Being more present, more awake? Do you do what needs to be done or what love demands? Are you allowing to let life unfold as it will? If you're doing any of these, then you're doing just fine. The path's an interesting thing towards enlightenment as we step out of the self and as we become in charge of our thinking. You can't see it when you're on it. Rumi tells us that as you start to walk the way appears. Clarity doesn't come before action, it comes from action. Action towards what? That's an interesting thing. In the world, our action would be towards a plan, right? Trying to achieve an objective. But here, our actions inspired, trying to be in love, allowing the outcome to be whatever it is. So paths are hard to find. Because that isn't the point of the journey. You're on your greatest journey when every aspect of yourself starts to disappear, or at least you're not taking it very importantly. And you enter this contemplative state of reflection, and this is the one I love the most, is you no longer need to know where you're going. You no longer need to know where you are. It doesn't matter. Because life will find you. Because you're always here. You're always on the path. You just don't know you are. And when you feel like you're not, that's you feeling. That's you feeling. It's not the truth. Presence is a powerful stranger. Get to know your presence. Get to know your now. Ask permission to be known by the space between the sounds I make. All the sounds we hear in the world, all the noise we get, it's just the stuff that peppers and exists because of the silence. Silence actually makes all the sound we hear possible. It sits there all the time. So what do you do when you feel lost? Right? We've had this conversation in work group. Like, I don't know if I'm making progress. I feel like I felt back. I didn't do any meditation this week. I got mad at somebody. I feel like this journey, I just don't know if I'm on the journey. What do you tell kids to do when they're lost?
Stay where you are,
Stay where you are. Why do we tell them that?
because we could find them if they stay.
There you go. Why would it be any different with God, the universe? When you feel like you're stuck and you're not on the path, fall still. Be still. The trees ahead of you and the bushes beside you are not lost. Stand still, quietly listen. Life will find you. When you don't know what to do, seek the solitude behind the noise. Listen to your thoughts. Honor them. Let them go. Come back to the current moment and repeat and repeat and repeat. Life's truth. And this is a poignant transition slide. Life's truth, coming from a Buddhist view of reality. Jack Kornfield tells us the entire teaching of Buddhism can be summed up this way. Nothing is worth holding on to. Practice kindness, practice compassion moment to moment. Does anyone know the 3 marks of human existence from Buddhism? And anyone know any of them?
What did you say?
The marks of existence, human existence through Buddhism. Anyone know them? We're going to go over all 3 of them here. And the only reason we're going to do it in this setting is because it's a perfect transition for what we're going to talk about next. The 3 marks of human existence are impermanence. Everything is subject to change. I had a friend of mine had a procedure done not too long ago, and he was really upset by it, but he ended up the conversation by saying, "Oh, this too shall pass." Whatever you're worried about, eventually it's going to go away. Whatever you're waiting for, eventually it's going to come. Anything you're holding on to is going to slip through your hands eventually, which is kind of interesting. Imperfection is the second rule of human existence. Life is flawed, unpleasant, and ultimately unsatisfactory. Oh, it can be good and great, but it can't permanently be unflawed, and it can't permanently, by itself, satisfy. The third mark of human existence is the non-self. The Buddha also noted that self was an imaginary construct, ever morphing and incomplete, contrived and made up, conflicting with reality. So, Russ, why are you bringing these up? Because they're true. They're fundamentally true. This is the entire teaching of Buddhism, and this is why it doesn't go away, and you see streaks of it all through philosophy, psychology, and elsewhere. Because it isn't that so much that these are profound, it's that these are the reason we have all the suffering we have. Because we don't agree that these things are true in our lives. And we try to make them not true. And every time we make them not true, either by resisting them or grasping them, we hurt ourselves. And suffering comes from this. Fighting these is the cause of all suffering. Now you could say, well, that's interesting, Russ. So fighting these causes suffering, and the suffering therefore might be encouraging us to what? Change. Wake up. Wake up to the fact that we're fighting all these. We don't agree with these. We're not living in reality. Because if you don't agree with these, you're not living in reality. And so isn't it interesting? Maybe suffering's a tool. So when Laura asked us, what's the purpose of suffering? I went back and looked at the philosophical, psychological purpose of suffering, what people knew about it, what had come through the ages. And it turns out pain and suffering is profoundly important in the journey of enlightenment.
So pain and suffering doesn't necessarily mean learning from it. Is that a way to...
That would be how you end it. But many people like the lesson many, many times before they're... I'm a slow learner. I've been in some of these grades for years. Right. So pain and suffering is the gateway to consciousness. Helen Keller tells us that the character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience and trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened. She's not wrong. See, you've stood behind your miracle and it hasn't come. You've held fast, you stood in faith, you prayed. You've done everything you can. You've seen all the doctors, done all the tests, had all the surgeries. You've exhausted every possibility. And you've even gotten to the place where you've just let go and let God. But have you ever considered the possibility that there's a greater purpose? That suffering might not exist to punish you or be awful or evil per se, but actually might be a way to transform? The mystics have. The theorists, some of the wisest people ever walked the earth have. Pain is necessary to crack open your consciousness. Now, if you have a really thick shell like my rock head, it might take you 40 years. But you get there. Pain cracks open consciousness, not so much evil, but a divine way of expanding the heart. For soul healing happens through hardship. Story of the butterfly. Thank you for being my straight woman, Candace. A naturalist once noticed that the cocoon on his table was trembling with life. Inside, a butterfly was fighting its way out, beating again and again against the tight walls of its tiny cocoon. Moved by pity, he took a small lancet and carefully cut open the cocoon, freeing the insect at once. But what fell to the table was not the graceful creature he had imagined. The butterfly lay there weak and awkward, its body swollen, its wings wrinkled and small, and it could neither walk nor fly, only struggle helplessly. Only then did the naturalist realize what his kindness had done. The very pressure of the cocoon, the long, slow battle to break through, was what would have driven strength and fluid into the wings, preparing them for flight. By removing the struggle, he'd taken away the condition for its beauty and its freedom. So too the story concludes as our own trials. When the walls do not part at our first cries, it may be because we are still being strengthened for the day we can truly fly. There's, how about child abuse? I'll handle that because that one is a direct, that one requires a certain amount of tact. And I'm not gonna, if you would like to talk about that offline, I will. But let me take something better. How about something more salient? How about 27 years of a medical problem where you're in pain all the time? That's how I ended up here. 27 years of suffering, in pain, maybe one day realized that I didn't want to be here anymore. And it was that transition that allowed me to start stepping outside of this self. And when you start stepping outside of the ego self and you start not listening to the ideas of beliefs, you can transform, and it's a very powerful way, and I'm positive I wouldn't be here if it hadn't happened. So while it hurts as I stand here, I'm not happy about it. It's been a beautiful transition in many ways. To that I can speak. And I would argue there's no major suffering in anyone's life that cannot be transformative in some way. It's what you do with it. You can shut down or you can grow from it. Yeah, Laura.
I think it's important to understand where that suffering comes from, where it comes from Satan. It comes from evil. Like, we can't say that suffering is anyone's fault, but it's sin, and it's not God's fault. And that's, I know, a super sticky conversation, but I think it's important to realize that's where that comes from. Yeah.
Appreciate the input, and we're going to actually touch on that next slide. So let's keep going. So growth and suffering are intertwined. They've always been intertwined. And the idea is to trust the process. You never want to underestimate the value of a good crisis. I stole that from Nate. There's a poet, Khalil Gibran. He wrote the book The Prophet, and he says, your pain is the breaking of a shell that encloses your understanding. Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so you must know pain. So the deepest wisdom in our lives, he argues, is born of endurance and surrender. It's never born of comfort. Comfortable people are not generally wise people. They have not been transformed through privilege, through wealth, through many of those things. So what the suggestion is that we're to participate and feel fully in complete awareness. For pain is the soul stretching beyond its old boundaries. Suffering doesn't break you, it reveals you. And when the shell cracks, light can enter. So I'm going to continue on with Khalil Gibran's quote here. He says, therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of the unseen. Interesting, right? But how do we marry this idea of a world with suffering with a God who is good and pure and love? Well, we have two options. We have option A, it's evil and completely out of our control. Or we have option B, God's going to use it in a way for our good. I believe in a loving God. So I'm going to go forward and say, if God's pure love, and if God does not change and he cannot lie, then all suffering must serve some good, or our understanding of God is completely wrong. I'm not negating what Laura said. I'm just adding on to it that our understanding would have to be wrong. Because my God is loving, good, he never changes. So if suffering exists, he has to be able to use it to our good. And each soul is guided to healing through hardship. For hardship is the divine sculptor. I'll say that again because I love the line so much. Hardship is the divine sculptor. And it's from here we get purpose. Let's go for the ultimate case. Ed.
Yeah, I think of that as the pain and suffering is something that God will help you through. Whereas if you don't have that spiritual belief, if you will, you're not gonna get through it as well. So it's kind of the pain, no gain type thing. But it's I look at it. He helps me through that suffering.
Sure.
And I'm glad I have him to help me through that because it's gonna happen.
And that's completely in line with everything we're talking about here. It's in no way, that's no way out of bounds. There's a lot of options for shades of perspective here that are all complementary. Complementary, they're all complementary. But how you work your own story in your head, that's great. You have to own your own space. Yeah. My story is no less true than your story. So the reason I want to go on with this thought, because I closed the last slide with saying, he's the divine sculptor, and then I said, pain and suffering drives us to purpose. Where do I get that? Well, I get it from Viktor Frankl. Infinite purposes, finding meaning in adversity. Who can tell me who Viktor Frankl is?
The author of a book called The Meaning of Life or The Purpose.
Man's Search for Meaning, yep. Very good book. Long read, but very good book. Very, very sad book in parts. Who is Viktor Frankl? Who can tell me?
He was in the concentration camps?
Yeah, Viktor Frankl is a Jewish psychiatrist who was interned at 4 different German camps during World War II, the final one of which was Auschwitz. The average life expectancy of someone interned at camp was how long? Anyone know? It was 3 to 5 weeks. He was interned for almost 4 years. How did he survive? Does anyone know?
I believe he found meaning in thinking about his wife, that he would be somehow together with her again, and they're having to rewrite his book that they took away from him.
He did those things. He did reflect on his family. He did work on Logos, which was his primary book, but day to day, he did something different, actually, a little deeper. And we're going to actually get to that. But here's a quote from Victor. What matters, therefore, is not meaning of life in general, but rather specific meaning of a person's life in a given moment. People always come to me and say, what's my purpose? Let's keep going. When bad things happen, you can change what you can. You can manage what you cannot change. First 2 are the Serenity Prayer. Any of you AA participants? But Victor tells us that the only thing that you control 100% in your life, the only thing is your ability to choose your attitude in a given moment. Victor chose an attitude of helping other people every day at the expense of himself and not worrying about himself. That was literally the only thing he did that was different than everyone else, which allowed him to survive camp. Every day he looked for a way to be of service to others. So he did not focus on the self, and by not focusing on the self, he did not get wound up in something, well, that really isn't true. When bad things happen, we have an opportunity to reframe challenges as opportunities. And here what we do is we shift our attention from what we're believing, oh no, this is terrible, and focusing on ourselves to focusing beyond ourselves, which I just mentioned, And what Victor did also is he asked what purpose God was calling him towards, to find true meaning in the situation. So I'm going to go ahead and read the entire excerpt that came from, because it's really good about purpose. So next time you think about, what do I do with my life? What's my purpose? What's my meaning? Victor had a very different non-American view on, non-traditional view on how you find your purpose or what your life's meaning is. Here we go. The meaning of life differs from man to man, from day to day, from hour to hour. What? Meaning is dynamic? What matters, therefore, is not the meaning of life in general, but the specific meaning in a given moment. To put the question in general terms would be the question posed to a chess champion. Tell me, master, what is the best chess move in the world? Well, there's simply no such thing as the best or even good mood apart from a particular situation and game and a particular particular personality of a person's opponent. The same holds true for human existence. One should not search for an abstract meaning in life. Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life to carry out a concrete assignment which demands fulfillment. Therein, he or she cannot be replaced, nor can his or her life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is as unique as is his specific opportunity to implement it. As each situation in life represents a challenge to a man or woman and presents a problem for him to solve, the question of the meaning of life may actually be reversed. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. Wow. So what's life asking you to be responsible about? Not what you want, not your plans, not your wishes, not your way. What's life asking you to be responsible about? You see, adversity is ripe with purpose. So I take a lighthearted view of this, because you can't get any harsher or darker than Victor's experience. But taking a beautiful example of the wisdom, what is life calling to you in the moment, in kind of a silly way, but it's humorous.
So I was at the pool today when I saw a little bug in the water kicking its legs. So I scooped it into my hand and brought it over to the side of the pool and went to drop it onto the side and noticed that it stayed stuck to my hand. And at first I was a little worried because I saw that it had a stinger, but I was curious why it was sticking to my hand, so I just let it be there. And slowly but surely, I watched as this bug took its front legs and started to dry off its head and its little antennas, and took its back legs and started to clean off its back, and then started to flutter its wings a little bit to dry them off, and then did the whole thing over and over again for about a minute. And then eventually, by just holding my hand steady, the little bug flew away. And when I saw this, it made me think about how often some of us just need a moment to be observed and to be supported while we take care of ourselves, do what we need to do, so that then we can go in whatever direction we need to go in. And I loved that I could just sit with this little bug that at any moment could have stung me, but instead it just held on, asked for a little help, so it could gently dry itself off, dry its wings off, so it could eventually fly away. So a little invitation that I learned today that I'm passing on to you, to maybe take some time to support people, to observe maybe what's really going on and what they need, and just be with them until they have the strength to walk or fly.
None others as God loved us.
What's that?
None others others as God loved us.
Loved others, God loved us. What's golden rule? Yeah, treat others as you have treat others as you treat yourself. Anyone know the platinum rule?
What?
Platinum rule. You know the golden rule. How about the platinum rule? Anyone know it? Treat others as they want to be treated. Treat others as they want to be treated. Take a moment. Be what that person needs in that moment. Not who you are, who you think you are, or who the world tells you are. Just be present. And when you can get all this noise of your thinking and yourself out of your head, you won't have to ask what to do to be supportive. You'll know what to do. And while this is a simple example, it's an incredibly powerful metaphor for how we relate to each other in daily life when we bump into people. So what's the meaning of life? Anyone read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? What's the meaning of life? I know it's 1,000 pages to get to the answer 42. So I'd suggest you just skip the whole book. I'm going to save you the time. The meaning of life is to have and to enjoy life and to live it to the full. Well, it doesn't sound very biblical, does it? Oh, au contraire. It's totally biblical. The thief comes to kill and destroy, John 10:10, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And here are some of the other translations. Not only just have it to the full, but have it abundantly, have it rich, have it satisfying, have it overflowing, have a more and better life than they ever dreamed of. Seek first ye the kingdom of God, and all things will be added unto you, including a joyful and rich life. For Thomas Merton tells us that the only true joy on earth is to escape the prison of our own selfhood and enter by love into a union with a life who dwells and sings within the essence of every creature and in the core of our own souls. Yeah. So what's the meaning of life? Purpose of life is to live it. Congratulations, you're all doing a great job. Well played. All your hard work's paying off. It's like asking what a piece of music's for. Why do we make music as a species? Anyone tell me? There's no magic purpose for it. What is it? For joy. Because we like listening to the notes, right? Because we like spending time in the contrast, the sounds, the memories, the things we put together around sound, right? It's a beautiful experience, but it has no survival purpose. And if it wasn't for the joy of music, conductors would just make a loud crash at the end and be done with it, right? Why spend all the time putting the notes together? Just boom, and you're just done with it. Is that jazz? And that's the question here. And yes, jazz is like that throughout, but no, not picking on jazz. So congratulations. So the world tells us we need to do something. We have to be somebody. We have to accomplish something, build a company, have a legacy, be thin, be rich, go places, travel. And if life doesn't go how we want it, the world tells us we're doing something wrong. Although Buddhism earlier told us we're just assuming that life should go how we wanted it. And therein lies the problem. But the world tells us that we should be all these things. And the world tells us that if we're not these things, we're a failure. And the reality is, you're already it. You're just busy thinking you aren't. When I say it, I mean not just present, not just awake, not just sovereign over your thoughts, not just beyond your self-centered self, but you're all actually enlightened. You were at birth. You can be again. You just picked up a bunch of junk along the way that isn't serving you. So accept and enjoy the gift of this present moment. That's why the present is called the present, right? Because it's a gift. All is well. Everything's in balance. Everything will work out. Awaken and know the perfection behind it all. You're exactly, perfectly in place. And if you think you're not, stop. Watch what thoughts are going on in your head, what beliefs you're holding. Say, thank you for serving me, but right now, Becky, in my case, we're not doing that. And let it go and come back to this moment. Because now is not the time, Becky. So I'm going to show you a video. It's going to start on manifestation, but that's not what Neil Walsh is talking about. So here we go.
When somebody asks me, how can I manifest stuff in my life? I say to them, what do you want to manifest? A better you, more compassion, greater understanding, deeper wisdom, more love, or the perfect mate, or the better job? No. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. And by the way, this is not the pot calling the kettle black. I did this. I made these same mistakes. I made these same choices. I even did my affirmations for 7 times 70, and all the ways that you can manifest your own reality. I did it for many years until finally God said, Neil, first of all, it's not about you. Your life isn't about you. It's about everyone else's life you touch and the way you touch them. That's number one. Number two, even if you had all those things, do you think that's what's going to make you happy? You want to know how many people have the perfect car, the perfect mate, the perfect job, and they're sad as hell? Hello, wake up. And I finally got it. That if I spent my life sharing the wisdom, the understanding, the clarity, and the love of God with as many people as I could reach, I would no longer have to search for the perfect mate, the perfect job, the perfect income, the perfect anything. It would all just crash in on me and get...
And I cut him off because he goes off on a tangent. Yeah. So what comes up for you when you hear Neil? He's focused on worldly things, and he wasn't successful at them. And when he got past himself and focused on love, everything came to play. All right. Seek first ye the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you. Third time you've heard it this morning. Where's the kingdom of heaven? Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said it wasn't a place. So we've spent 9 weeks helping you understand how to find the kingdom of heaven. It's been with you all along. You don't have to go anywhere to be in communion with one consciousness, with nature, with the universe, with God, whichever you'd like to call it. This is the meaning of life. And awareness is your purpose. And presence, your personal presence, is your way forward. So this brings us to the final slide of the seminar, spiritual paradox. To be or not to be, that is the question. Well, you are. Do you know it? Do you live it? Maybe that's what Shakespeare was really talking about. To be or not to be. We're often not being. We're seldom being, even though we are human beings and feel like human doings way too often. Lao Tzu tells us that if you want to become whole, you need to let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, you need to let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, you have to become empty. And if you want to be reborn, you have to die. If you want to be given everything, you must give up everything. Awakening is the gateway. It's the hardest work you will ever do, managing this thing up here. And yet, it is no work at all. Just pay attention. You don't have to go anywhere to do it. You don't have to pay any money to do it. You can do it anytime you want, anywhere you're at. And it's in being that we fulfill our destiny. We're one with everything, with all life and consciousness. But we don't remember we are. But in doing so, changing ourselves changes the world. because what's in you can't help but leak out. So remember the story of the monk? Why did they spill their coffee? Right, not because someone bumped into them, but because they had coffee in their cup. So what do you have in your cup when someone bumps into you? Do you have love and compassion and kindness? And that's what's going to spill out of your cup. How do you get those things without having to work at them? You wake up. Otherwise, it's always effort, always effort. I got to work to be good. I got to work to be kind. I got to work to manage my anger. Or you could just become aware and all those things will fall away, the negative behavior patterns. So in being, we fulfill our destiny, but in doing, we honor the leading of our souls. Every act we make when we're asleep in our heads is open to evil. It will be a suboptimal act. We will never make great decisions. You may make satisfactory ones, you may get what you want, but what you want won't make you happy, as Neil just told us. Yet every act that you do awake, as we talked last week, nothing is off limits for you. Everything is available to you. There is no way to make a mistake if you're walking in love. So which is it? Are we to be, or are we to do? Because this comes up a lot. Like, you see the contemplatives in their monasteries, and 14 years later they've been meditating. They've reached perfect transcendence. They're completely still and quiet. Is that what we're supposed to do? Or are we supposed to be Mother Teresa in the world, wrapping the wounds of the sick, helping the poor? Being or doing? Being or doing? Which is it? Yeah. Both. Yeah, you might lean one more one way and one time, and certain seasons you lead one way, other seasons you lean another way. But you're always called to be both. In fact, you can't really do one without the other. James calls us to task, which is, how can you believe in Christ and not walk the way he walked? You don't believe, otherwise you would. So being and doing are literally the same sides, opposite sides of the same coin. Jesus never asked us to worship him, but he asked us numerous times to follow him. But we got to find him first. He's here. He's always present. But you have to awaken and see it. More importantly, you have to awaken and see how you're getting in your own way. Then you won't have to think about it. You'll already know. You'll know what to do. You won't have to ask yourself or debate. You'll already know the right answer. There's a famous quote late in life that it's kind of esoteric. Hopefully no one's heard it in the room. Carl Jung was asked late in life. He's the famous Swiss psychiatrist who was the founder of almost all the modern archetype psychology. He was, you saw him in an earlier video a couple sessions ago. He was Sigmund Freud's protege. Late in life, he was asked if he believed in God. And his answer was powerful. And this sums up our whole session together, all of our sessions. No, he said, I don't believe in God. I know him. The kingdom of God is at hand. This is the narrow gate. The pathway is wide open, but the travelers are few. Will you walk it? For yourselves? For that moment of clarity? For extra peace? For some joy? For some clarity? Just clarity. Just constant driving and machinating, scheming in our lives. And at the end of all that, we're not going to get anything that satisfies. So stop. Stop. be, see, know. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of all of you. I am around. If you know of places where people might be interested in doing this kind of work, places where I could shake other people awake, I'm available to do that. So I'm around. Reach out if there's anything I can do for you. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you.